to A Well-Designed Business. My name is Luann Nigara, and I'm so glad you found this podcast. Together with my husband Vince and our partner Bill, we have grown our company WindowWorks from the ground up. So I know and I understand the challenges you face in running your interior design business. I also know that your talent alone isn't enough to ensure your success. So on this podcast, we talk about strategies and practical steps to help you grow your business. But make no mistake about it, we have our share of fun here too, mixed in with those aha moments that I love so much. This isn't fluff. Nobody has time for that. Whether you are a new interior designer or a seasoned designer, I am here to help you create and to manage the kind of interior design firm that you dream of. It's straight talk and it's action. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, welcome to A Well-Designed Business. It's Power Talk Friday. I have Bethany Mabee with me today. Bethany is exactly the lady that you have been on the hunt for if you ever wish that you could outsource your procurement process, right? That 80% of the business that you really don't love to do. Well, Bethany is your lady. And here's the really cool thing. She makes it possible to work with her whether you are a solo interior design firm with even just a single project that's on your lap and either because of time or the size of the project or whatever is going on in your life, it is not possible for you to efficiently handle the procurement process on your own. You can do a one-off project with Bethany. And if you are a large interior design firm and you know that you always consistently have several projects in the pipeline at the same time, Bethany can handle that as well. I'm talking about outsourcing here to a proven professional. And this could be real magic for you in your interior design business. Let me tell you a little bit about her background and what makes her so perfectly qualified to do this. Before opening her firm, Interior Procurement Group, Bethany worked behind the scenes in the interior design industry for nearly 20 years. Her career began in 2001 at Eastern Accents, a Chicago-based textile manufacturer, where she oversaw custom trade orders by communicating their specifications through production. Let's not skip over this sentence. Focus, okay? I know you're running, doing laundry, picking up kids. Listen to this sentence. She oversaw custom trade orders by communicating their specifications through to production. That's exactly that knee-deep detail work that you have to do every single day in your design firm, isn't it? I know. All right, keep listening. This was a perfect learning experience and stepping stone for transitioning to Gary Lee Partners, where Bethany worked as the architecture firm's procurement director from 2005 and 2009. Some street cred here, in my opinion. Now, since opening her interior procurement group, Bethany has worked with dozens of designers on a project-by-project basis, and she acts as an agent on their behalf. Check this out also according to her website. Her goal is to eliminate all non-design related items for the designer during the furniture purchasing process so that they are freed up to focus on other areas of the project that demand their attention. This is a you have me at hello sentence, isn't it? I know. I'm kind of thinking, isn't there somebody like this for a podcast? Anyway. Before we get to the show, let's show a little love to our sponsor, My Doma Studio. You know how much I adore My Doma Studio because I think it's the perfect way to increase your efficiency, make sure that you have more time to do the things that produce income in your firm rather than spending time muck and mired in the weeds and the details. And I'm just thinking about the combination, the 1-2 punch of having all of your information in My Doma Studio and then being able to turn the keys over to Bethany to execute everything once all those approvals come in from your client. Boom, 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 approve, cart, pay, boom, send it to Bethany. I'm just, riffing here on this and thinking, whoa, that would be pretty amazing, okay? Now, the other thing I want to just say about My Doma Studio is maybe you've never tried it. Maybe you tried it a few years ago, but the thing is that My Doma Studio is always making innovations and adding layers to what they do for you throughout the platform. So if it's been a while since you've tried My Doma Studio, do not hesitate to go back and try it again, okay? One of the things about My Doma Studio, and I know this from Sarah Daniele, but I also know it from speaking to you when I meet you either through the podcast, through an interview, or in a live event. Many of you have said to me, you know what I really love about my DOMA? Okay, yes, I work smarter, I work more efficiently, I'm organized, I love all that. But the other thing I really love about my DOMA is there have been times when I felt like I had a really terrific idea that I wished that was part of what they did, and I've mentioned it to them, and then a couple of months later I get an email and where they say to me, we've added the feature that you are looking for. So this is the type of company that my DOMA Studio is. It's the type of company that definitely has as their number one goal your business, its efficiency, and its profitability. So if you have not checked it out recently, please go get your trial now at mydomastudio.com/awell-designed-business. That's mydomastudio.com/awell-designed-business. Okay, let's meet Bethany. Hey, Bethany, thanks so much for joining me on A Well-Designed Business today.
Hi, Luann. Thank you for having me.
So, Beth, we got to chat here a minute here. I have to say, there isn't one part of me that doesn't admire what you do, but there's a whole part of me that finds it hard to believe that somebody likes to do this.
Right. Admire or dread, yeah.
Oh my goodness gracious. Like you wake up every day and you are up to your neck in details every day,
Right.
all day long.
And I love swimming in details. I don't know. I mean, it's definitely something it's finding chaos. I mean, organization within chaos and spreadsheets and all of those things for some reason excite me.
Oh my God. Just researching you was painful for me, I have to say.
Some
My
reaction.
God, right? I mean, really, I was just like, I literally was visualizing what your day is like every day, because here's what I know to be true. You're doing what your job is, what you do for interior designers is you do probably 60% of that 80% that none of us likes to do, right? We say that, right?
Yeah.
We say that running a design firm is 80% the back end paperwork and 20% is the front end designing and client interaction, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm looking at your list of services. I'm like, she does 60% of the 80%.
Right.
The only thing that's not here is like the quarterly meetings with the accountant and the weekly meetings with the bookkeeper. I mean, so maybe you're doing like 90% of the 80%.
Well, and I try to make those quarterly or monthly meetings easier for the designer and the accountant, but
they still have to show up and do them.
They still have to do the work. Yeah.
It's amazing. It really is amazing. And I just think that it is just yet another example that we all have superpowers. We all have our zone of genius. We all have the things that we love. And, you know, for crying out loud, why do we all struggle with working outside of our zone of genius, right?
Right, exactly. I mean, I feel lucky to have found this little niche because it was something I stumbled on years ago, and I've been so lucky to be able to do it on my own because it's definitely something that's a lot of people don't know that it's out there, that you can outsource these things.
Right. Of course, you know, over the years, I've interviewed other businesses like that do similar services. But I think what I'm seeing when I read your website, and I would love for you to just check for me right off the bat, is
right.
That you're doing this at a very high. It's not the high level. It's not that these other firms that I've interviewed aren't doing it for high level designers, but you're doing it for high volume designers. I guess that's what I should looking for. Firms with tremendous volume. Do I understand that little nuance of a difference of your specialty in this, Beth?
I think it could probably go either way because I think some of my clients are on a bigger scale, just whether it's the project itself or whether they have a lot of projects going on at once. But I'm recently working with a designer who used to focus primarily on the architectural aspects of the job. And now she got a big furniture job that, it's just not really in her wheelhouse. And she's probably not busy enough to hire me, yet it makes sense for her to get set up with me while she has the time to, so that she can focus on getting more clients. And then she'll be in a groove once she picks up more pace.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So I definitely there's a big span of not just the volume of the project, but the type of designer as well.
Okay. So when we would talk about a sweet spot for you. So we with designers, we task them all the time with identifying their ideal client. So when you work with different firms of different sizes and capabilities, do you have an ideal sweet spot of the maybe the dollar amount for the project that you're doing? Because what you said in there was you might have one firm that each individual project or client might not be a multi six-figure project, but they're together, all of their projects are multi six figures possibly, and that makes it overwhelming for that firm. So, but do you have a sweet spot of a project size or something?
I think maybe instead of the size, it's probably more just the nature of the purchasing, because I think that there are some designers out there that might focus more on sourcing retail items for their clients that are more readily available and at a lower price point. So I think most of the designers I work with they're doing to the trade items. They're doing custom, COM materials. They're doing orders that have long lead times that usually need shipped to a warehouse and stored for a larger installation. So, but they still fill in the gaps with retail items, which I help them with. But I've worked on projects, with a $20,000 budget up to like a $900,000 budget. So it really, regardless of the budget, there's still a beast of a system with procurement in general if you're ordering through the trade. And so even if it's a smaller project, it's still helpful to outsource all the paperwork and all of the communication along the way if an item's going to be in production for a while and receiving materials. And it ends up being a lot more communication than you think, even on a small project.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm understanding that now. It really, that's a good clarification for me, because I was visualizing this visualizing your services more targeted to design firms that maybe have larger design teams, and that the what do we call that, Beth? It's FFE, furniture,
Right.
Furniture, fixtures, and equipment.
Equipment, right?
Yes, Beth just schooled me off air on what that was.
Oh, I know, right? And
Right.
the equipment part doesn't come into play much, but it's just one of those industry terms that
Right.
everyone uses.
Yeah, and so I was taking in making an assumption based on the website that it was probably based on the volume, that if a designer reached out to you and said, "Hey, I'd love you to do my whole procurement process and so forth," that you'd say, "Okay, yeah."
Well, that's good to hear
project.
for me too, though, because I've been lucky to work on some big projects that are, they're stunning. But I think maybe it would be good for me to showcase some of the smaller ones as well, because I do think that those projects can benefit from it just as much as the big ones.
Right. Well, and the truth is that if you do and are happy to work on smaller projects, then yes, you should, I think, put a little bit of information on the website about that, because a lot of times when a firm gets larger, they scale up to 3, 5, 7 employees. Most of them will have somebody that does procurement on their staff, and there's a huge need for that 1 to 3 person firm to do it, right?
Definitely.
Yes.
Yeah. That would probably be another sweet spot for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So you're 1 to 3 employees, maybe yourself, a junior or a senior a designer with you. You might have an admin, and now all of a sudden, well, let me just say, I'm going to say now all of a sudden, but I'm going to clarify first. Say I'm not in that position, and for we've been cruising along, we've been doing our projects, and we can handle everything, and then all of a sudden we have this opportunity for this outstanding multi six-figure project, and I, as the principal, am looking around and saying, okay, so this is one multi six-figure project. I can see the way the universe lined up to create this for me in my life. I'm not 100% sure that I'm going to have a second one, and so therefore to hire somebody with benefits and payroll taxes and all of that stuff is a little onerous, and also trying to get them up to speed, right? This is where you come in, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, because I also think all projects, whether it's a single designer or 1 to 3 people, or even a small boutique firm, it's hard to have someone on staff full time, because those, even if you do focus primarily on furniture related jobs, there's such waves of phases, there's planning and presenting to the client. There's so many months where procurement may not even need to happen. So it's been nice for designers to just know when those phases come up, they'll use me. And I know when those phases aren't there, they won't need me. And it's just kind of a nice ebb and flow for both of us.
That's a great point too, because until you truly establish a mechanism for consistently keeping that pipeline full, you might be, to your point, in design phase for 3, 4, 5 months, and then procurement phase for 3, 4, 5 months, then installation phase. And what are you doing with your procurement officer? Are they doubling as, what? I don't know what. Are they doubling as the photographer's assistant? Like, what are they doubling as, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And here's the other thing, what I know, and I started it off with a little bit of a joke at how my brain hurts thinking about what you do every day. But that is the truth of it, is that what you do, whether you do it for a designer or they have their own in-house person to do it, it is a very specific type of personality that can assimilate, gather, collate, disseminate this amount of detail in an efficient, concise way. And so that skill set, if you have that person in your firm and you are on an ebb and flow type thing, what are they crossing over to do, really, right? Exactly. If they're really a superstar at that, they're not also designing, because that's a completely different brain. Although you're an artist too, so you have both sides going.
Exactly. I do it. I'm grateful that I can do that and appreciate their creative process. But I also think if you have an admin, an admin's going to be more than capable of doing the procurement. It's obviously not rocket science. It's just one of those, it's just a bit of an archaic system that just requires a lot of paperwork and communication. And so even if you did have an admin working and got busy with the project, you'd want to pull them out and help them with the design elements probably.
Right.
And so I do think it's one of those things that's just so a niche of a industry that it's nice to not have to train someone on.
That's the other thing. But like I said, getting them up to speed. If you're hiring somebody new because you've got that new opportunity coming along, it's really, here you are with the actual tangible project opportunity, and you have to look and say, I hope this person can do this right away, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, because usually, the ordering needs to happen sooner than you think, I feel. For most of the designers I work for, they're like, oh man, I need you maybe next week now.
And also, if you're trying to train the person in-house, you as the principal have your other jobs that you're trying to do, the roles that you're doing at the same time. Whereas to use an outside source like yourself, this is the one thing you do it with excellence, and you hand it over. It's like how many of designers have been on the show and they've talked about how they hire out the person who does their CAD drawings or their Revit and their SketchUp, right? It's like, I don't need to be the one to do that.
Exactly.
Okay. So the thing is, you really do get very in depth as to what you do. I was reading the website, and you have under your umbrella of services, you have purchasing management, purchasing support, scheduling management, warehouse sales and status and tracking support, warehouse support, installation support. So you really are a soup to nuts answer for an interior designer that's looking for some truly organized efficiency in this area of their business.
Right. Yeah. I feel like all those steps are so integrated that it's nice to have someone that can do it from the beginning to the end once that phase starts.
Right. And that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that. Is there an option for hiring you in the midstream and saying, I've already started to do this XYZ and I can see it's not working. Would you take over? Or do you say, no, it's really better that we start from the beginning?
I'm honestly pretty okay with working in what capacity works best for the designer. And if they're willing to kind of give me all the information and have access, and we can share folders and I can kind of help get everything organized into my own flow and system, then I'm more than happy to pick up. Because I think for some designers, I pick up when they're still in planning phases, and I'll actually help them get the formal quotes. Others wait until they've confirmed all their selections, and then they'll give me the formal quotes from the vendors, and I'll from there create proposals for their clients to sign off on and do the purchasing from there. So it really just kind of depends on where they are with their time and what they really need help with. And some designers can, it kind of depends what they set up with their clients, but some of them can bill my time to the client depending on what phase of the project it is. So that's another helpful thing for them, knowing that even though I'm outsourcing this, it's still billable time.
Well,
that
I was
can
going to
get.
ask you, I have that down as one of my questions, as a matter of fact, is that it seems to me that it would all be billable. I mean, whatever is billable, if I've got my own in-person person doing it or you doing it, it's billable.
Exactly. And I think every designer is a bit different because a lot of the designers I work with, they mark their furniture up, so the proposals I'm creating are listing out the items to be signed off on and then adding markup and sales tax and, listing out freight costs and all that. And so every designer seems to have a different contract with their clients, but some of that markup is allocated for the actual order tracking time spent. So some designers I work with can only bill maybe the beginning pricing phase and maybe the installation phase. They're all structured very differently. So I just try to give them as best of a breakdown of my time as I can. And then that way they can bill it as they choose.
Okay. So, and those are, to your point, the personal decisions of way that designer has particularly set up their fee structure with their client.
Right, exactly.
Right. Okay. All right. So that's interesting. Now, let's get into it a little bit because there are certain things that cross my mind. I mean, you are going to generate the FFE proposals for the client to, for their invoicing and all that. You're going to make the records of the client payments. You're going to make the records of the vendor payments. You're going to maintain, and like you said a few moments ago, the information that the designer needs to bring to their accountant. You're going to do, here's what I love: careful cost tracking. Okay.
Right.
You know why I love that? I love that you wrote careful because we can all do it sloppy.
Right.
We can all just look at that bottom and say, that kind of looks good.
Looks about right.
Looks about right. So, and the thing is, I know from WindowWorks, we get wrong invoices every month, at least one wrong invoice a month, and something that isn't right, double billed, overbilled, wrong quantities, blah, blah, blah. And, we're nuts at WindowWorks. Vinny has made us all completely nuts. And so we do track that. But I've had dozens of conversations with colleagues of mine, whether I meet them through a Hunter Douglas event or I meet them through a WCAA event or an Exciting Windows event, whatever it might be, but my own window treatment colleagues, where if they are their own admin and salesperson, so often they'll just, say how, oh yeah, whatever the invoice says, we just add it up and we just mail that at the end of the month. And Vin and I we cringe. We're like, no.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Do you find errors in invoicing all the time too, Bethany?
I think that what I find is that nothing is ever as black and white as you want it to be in the beginning. You'll even get a formal quote from a vendor before you put that on a proposal to the client. Inevitably, once you get that order confirmation back, either the freight amount is either unknown or it's a little bit off, or suddenly there's a credit card fee processing that you have to add, or, there's always little variations, and those things can really add up if you're not revising those amounts before you send the client the final bill. So I think that's probably where it comes in most helpful. I think it's also an accountant's nightmare to, they have some orders that are open because we only paid a 50% deposit. Some we paid 100%. And I think I think that that's the biggest challenge that the designers I work with face. And I think they all feel like they're doing something wrong. And I always have to remind them that they're not alone, that it's a struggle for every designer I've ever worked with. They have their accountant working on the big picture, obviously with time billing, but then procurement is just such a nightmare for accountants because of the way that the money flows, and some knowns are there, some aren't. And so I just try to keep the best records I can so that we're billing the client exactly as we should, and that the accountant can make sense of everything.
Well, you know what? You're really talking to two of the experts that I've had on the show here, that you're really talking to their superpowers. And I have to just take a minute because we have Peter Lang, who is the designer CPA, right? I mean, first of all, he's one of the co-authors in the book that's out, and he did a whole chapter on how to hire a CPA and the things that you should expect and so forth. But I love that he specializes in this industry for exactly this reason, right?
I was so excited to hear his interview because I was like, this is so needed. excited.
Yes, because he gets it. He's not like scratching his head going, I don't understand. Why? Wait,
Right.
you paid $50,000 3 months ago. You still owe $50,000. When are we paying that? What's happening?
Right.
How could it take 6 months for a sofa to come in? That doesn't make any sense.
No.
Exactly. So he gets it. And then we also have Kimberly Merlitti, who was just recently on the show, and she is what she calls herself is she's like a CFO for hire for and she specializes in the interior design and architects industry as well. And because she comes from that background of the industry and doing the purchasing and processing and all of that for architectural and design firms, and so she understands that same thing. And the show that we did was called, understanding your cash flow, and that like what you just mentioned, you might put $100,000 check into your checking account, but that's not all your money. So we're gonna Bethany is gonna distribute that to 15 vendors, from carpet deposits and kitchen cabinet deposits and everything else. And by the time somebody like you or their in-house person distributes all that, maybe there's 50,000 left, but that 50,000 still isn't necessarily your money either, right?
Exactly. I know, and I think especially for the 1 to 3 employee designers, it's frightening for them to have that much money just sitting there too, waiting to get paid out. And so I think it's just nice to have an understanding of where that's going to be going and when. And
so that's one of the things that you do. You have, do you do weekly check-ins with your designers on the statuses of their projects? Is it monthly check-ins? What do you do, and what do you supply to them so that they have this bird's eye view of where their projects are in the order process?
Some designers I work with, they want just a month-end reconciliation. So I pretty much send them a report of anything that's closed out. So if anything's still open and in production with the balance due, then it's not going to be included. Or some designers, they want me to just send a report to their accountant, maybe with each wave of orders. Like if they're the type that orders more, in phases, then I'll be in touch with the accountant and let them know we just got this check from the client for this proposal, and these are the orders I've placed, and this is the money that's come in, and this is the money that's gone out. And so some of it is, again, it's one of those things that's so different for each designer, but I have found that it's been most helpful for just having that month-end check-in, because I think otherwise it can get a bit overwhelming as things are happening throughout the month. It's almost nice to just have that recap.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, even like, for example, for Peter Lang, he insists on at minimum quarterly meetings with his clients. And he, most accountants are like, I'll see you at tax time, right?
Right.
And he just said, if you will not agree to quarterly meetings at minimum, he won't even take you as a client. He's just like, it's not going to happen. Right.
Yeah,
and he prefers monthly, in truth. But at minimum, you have to do a quarterly, because to your point, it's so much easier for all of us that don't have a brain that functions in this specific, detailed, orientated spreadsheet way, right? It's so much easier if you sit down and explain it to me as we go in chunks, and I can see, starting from that $100,000 check that I received from my client, I can see that progress all the way through my firm, as opposed to when the job is done and I'm like, okay, so now there's 20,000 of the 100 left. That's mine. Great, right? I want to understand how it went, because that makes me a more informed business owner, right? A more proactive person in creating the success of my own firm, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and I think for some of the designers I work with that are strictly independent and they don't even have a single employee, I think it just helps them feel less alone in everything, because it is hard for any of us that are working by ourselves in an isolated environment. It's just nice to know that if you aren't big enough to have a team, you feel like you kind of have someone on your side, kind of working trial and error through these projects, because I think some of the designers I work with, we do have to do a lot of figuring out together to see what works best with them. And it's just kind of nice when we can just kind of do it together and figure it out.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love the idea of, to your point, even if you are running a firm by yourself, to have the support and it's not just the support, it's the support of someone who knows this at an expert level. That's what I love about it. It's like I can hire somebody that has a cursory information and maybe has done purchasing for, I don't know what industry, the bricklayers industry is what I always use, right? But I love the idea that it's somebody who specializes in this particular industry and understands the nuances of it. So let's get into some of the nitty-gritty that goes through my mind when I think about, though, this hiring somebody outside, because, I'm going to make a guess. I've got to turn over all of my logins and passwords over to you for all of my accounts, right?
Right.
And, that's got to be a little bit of okay. I mean, once I speak to you and I know you and maybe I call a couple of references, but still, that's a lot of proprietary information that you have access to. How do you address that and when you meet a potential designer client who might have concerns in that area, Bethany?
Yeah, I think that's something I'm really respectful of, not just the informational side of it, but the just handing over your baby of your project too, and trusting, that's a scary thing for anybody. So I try to just there's obviously clients I work with for almost 8 years now, so that's not an issue. But for the ones I've just started maybe working with in the last year, we kind of try to work together to decide what they're comfortable with, meaning, would it make you feel better in the beginning if you were copied on these emails and sending to the vendors? I try to make sure to ask them, how much do you want to be bombarded in your inbox? Just so that you feel, like you have an idea of what's going on. Others, anytime that I've offered that, no one wants to do it because no one wants their inbox, they just want that to go away. And so it's just more, I try to give them as many reports as I can. I have kind of like a visual status sheet that I allow them to have access to. And then I also send them kind of like a PDF of it, like on the same day every week. And that just gives them kind of like a snapshot and an understanding of everything that's going on. So I think the most I can do is just keep them as informed as possible so they don't think I'm just kind of going rogue with everything.
Right. Well, I mean, that's it. There is that little feeling of, okay, I'm turning this over to you, but I need to know that you're doing it, right? And so when you think about, they have the option to be copied, or they have the option to say, no, I'll wait for the summary. That's fine. And that brings two questions up. So even though you might only be requiring an actual monthly meeting, possibly, or less with a design client, you are furnishing a status report for each of their projects every week?
Well, it's something I'm in every single day. Just any kind of update I get from a vendor, or if we're waiting on a cutting to be approved, or if there's material that is shipping to a manufacturer, I have the tracking number in there and I'll forward that on to the manufacturer to make sure they received it. I just feel like that's the crazy thing is, once something's ordered, it always shocks me how much correspondence goes on with an order, when you don't think that you always think it's just going to be a one and done. So I think that's something I have to be doing daily. And so there are updates that could be done weekly for the designer. But if they don't want to be bombarded with that every week, then, we can just kind of touch base as they want. But I do feel like it's nice just to have that check-in with each other.
Mm-hmm. So the point of it is, though, that you are probably, when you're knee-deep into a project for a designer, in their project every day, no different than if they had somebody in their firm doing this work. And but a lot of designers do have I've noticed in the last couple of 3 years as I've been doing the podcast, a lot of designers have adopted that every Friday status email to their clients. This is where your project is, because many of the designers on the show have shared that they do that. And I have learned by going to different live events over the last course of the last year or so, designers come up to me and say, one of the best things I've ever instituted from listening to on your show is the weekly status email to my clients.
That's great.
Yeah. And so what it does is it sort of heads everybody off at the path, right? It's, and I've also had designers say to me, I've adopted a policy where if a client has to ask me where we are on the project, I mentally say to myself, I'm not doing my job.
That's so true.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so the thing is, though, there's a little feeling of, okay, Bethany's over there doing all this, and I've got to send my status email out on Friday. Is it all really happening? So the reality is, if somebody runs their firm with that protocol, you can send them a status email, say, every Thursday, and they can get it prepared and turn it around, digest it, and put out back to the client on Friday what is important to them to know. Is that correct?
That's correct. And I would love that system. I think that's a great
Isn't that awesome?
system. Yeah, I always want to do it. It's just nice to have something in place same day every week.
Yep, exactly. Because it just makes it so that everybody's on the same page. And for the clients, we're all busy. We're all busy. And we're all the same. So the weekend comes and maybe we are finally going for a walk or we're going to a yoga class and we think, wonder what's going on with my sofa and that chandelier, for crying out loud.
Which for sure happens for all of us.
Exactly.
Wake up in a cold sweat.
Yeah, and by the way, I'm talking about the consumer thinking about that, right?
Oh yeah.
And they're like, so then Monday morning the designer wakes up to 10 emails from 10 customers, 10 clients saying, where's my chandelier? Where's my rug? Whereas if you end every Friday with, here's your status, people.
Exactly.
Everybody has a nice weekend.
Good for everyone. And it avoids all those piecemeal emails where it's like, you're just shooting out a thought of what's going on with this order.
Absolutely.
It's just nice to kind of eliminate those and just know, okay, I'll get it on Thursday.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. So back to some of the nitty gritty of the things that I think I could see as being question marks as opposed to no brainers. So this is the sharing of the login information.
Right.
Do you have an NDR that you, what is it? NDR? Do not resuscitate. DNR. No, NDR. I always say them wrong.
Do not resuscitate.
I usually say DNR. And I'm like, wait, it's not a do not resuscitate.
Hey, wait a minute. That's not right.
Right. Let me just say that over again. Okay. So what types of formal onboarding process do you do together with a designer? Do they include contracts? Do they include NDRs? What sorts of things that do you put in place so that a designer feels like, okay, this is pretty official. I feel good about this relationship with Bethany.
Yeah. We do. I usually have them sign. It's a very simple contract, but allowing that confidentiality of information, letting them know I have, liability insurance, should something happen, and sharing my hourly rate and how I will be billing my time. It just kind of gives an overview of all of those steps. And sometimes I even help designers kind of come up with their own terms and conditions to write out for procurement for their clients too.
Okay, good. And then tell me, what are some of the things that you've possibly encountered that I'm not skilled enough or aware enough of the process to like you'd say, this is sort of one of the ways that things can go wrong in the relationship with me and the designer if we don't watch out and attend to this, or something along those lines, challenges that you think that you know how to overcome?
I think the biggest thing to do is, the biggest challenge is definitely finding the process that allows for, it's one thing to have the client sign off on a proposal, but it's also, there has to be some form of written record that this is what the designer specified. Should something come in wrong, we can go back to that and say, okay, our purchase order said this, the confirmation said that, and that all matches what the designer specified. So some designers fill out actual specification forms, other designers that we use purchasing software, and they kind of review that and then give me the okay to turn it into an order. And I just think there always has to be some formal record of this is what I want.
Thank you.
And so,
Thank you.
yeah.
Can I just thank you from the high heavens for this? How about, do you require that formal record actually be accurate? I'm just questioning.
Right. You're speaking from the getting the purchase order front, aren't you? Yeah.
You know, you know what? It's not my Doma studio, but there are others out there, platforms that designers use for their purchasing documents to me and to all of their vendors that do not carry the proper quantity per line item.
Yeah, boy. Yeah.
It makes me nuts. It makes me nuts.
nuts.
It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. I literally, I just had this happen this week. I love this designer. I know it was a mistake. Well, and what I learned is that that's what the platform does. So, but, and we've worked many times with no issue, but I gave a quote for a quantity 2 of one particular item, and the purchase order came in and it said quantity 1. And I'm looking at it, and it's got the price for 2. So
boy, then you have to take your time to investigate.
Well, but that's my point. Which one is my instructions? Am I going because you have the price for 2? So what, I make an assumption that you want the quote as it was given to you for 2, or do I look at this and say, oh, they changed it to 1, but they have a typo and didn't make the change of the thing? When I tell you, you take it to the bank, Bethany. 5 days a week, we get purchase orders with something wrong on it. And now because I blew my top on it last week. I literally did. I was just like, this is ridiculous, blah, 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 blah. And then Kimberly says, that's this software program that they are using, and it doesn't allow them. And I was like, well, that's ridiculous. Because like I said, I know this designer many, many, many years. I love her. It is not Sandra Funk for everybody who's thinking it's Sandra Funk, okay? Doesn't matter if it was or it wasn't. But the point is, I called her up and I was like, what are we doing here? Did we change something? And, no. And I was like, well, your PO is for 1. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for calling me and for checking that. But my brain is just like,
that's just a lot of, it's too much going back and forth.
It is.
Well, I appreciate that you even look at the purchase order, because I'm kind of learning that, I'll send purchase orders along with the formal quote from the vendor. I think a lot of them just kind of disregard that purchase order that's being sent and just go off of what they provided on their end. So I think another thing I'm learning is the most important piece is that order acknowledgement or order confirmation.
Yes.
And so I will hound vendors to no end until I have that in my hands. There's nothing scarier to me than a vendor that won't give you an acknowledgement or a confirmation that the order's been processed. And so that's something that I'm learning is the biggest key, is make sure you have a confirmation and that it matches every trail that, preceded it, whether purchase order, proposal, designer specification. And then so a lot of the designers we just do shared files where I'll kind of create a file system where it's, purchase orders, confirmations,
And so you're in there editing and updating, but the designer can access that at 2:00 in the morning if she or he can't sleep.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. That's interesting. I like that part. Okay, I like that part of what you do, because I didn't know that part, but that would be interesting to me, because I often work on Saturdays and Sundays, and I often work at weird, odd hours. And if I were wanting to check to see where we were on things, I would love to know. I didn't know I could access the files that you have for my firm at any time.
Right, exactly. And that's been an important piece too, that's not something I just keep to myself. That's something if I'm working for a smaller firm that has a server set up, then they'll give me access to that and I'll save it in the method in which they have set up. For smaller designers, we usually just do some kind of Dropbox share where, they'll have their folders where I can kind of access, if they've approved a sample, they'll take a picture of it and save it to like the approved cutting folder. Or if I get a confirmation, I'll save it in the confirmation folder. And that way we just know where everything is.
Well, and that's tremendous accountability that the designer has for the work that you're doing. So there's no sending an email saying, oh, have you ordered the 16 sofas and 25 lamps I need for project A? And you're like, yeah, sure, did that last week.
Yeah, it's all done.
Don't worry about that, lady. Go ahead, go on vacation. We're good.
Yeah, we're fine.
Yeah, it's like, no, you either did it or you didn't do it, right? And so they can see it if you did or you didn't do it. I love that. The other place that I wonder if there is a nudge of a concern is, what are you doing as far as, of course you're a detail person, so I know what you're going to say, but I got to ask the question, how are you tracking your hours and advising the designer of your hours so that A, they know how much to pay you, and B, they know, how do you do that each week? Do you do it daily? If you're going to work on, Sally Smith's design, procurement package from 9:00 in the morning till 10:15, do you track it in real time somewhere and then log out and go to somebody else's? How carefully are you doing that?
Yeah, if I don't do it daily, it would just be, I don't know how I could do it otherwise. I kind of have a column for each client, and I have to make sure if I have more than a couple projects going on, I have to only work on one designer's project at a time, break, and then switch gears to another client. I try not to blend too much. So I usually record it every day. Sometimes it's just a matter of, I have a spreadsheet that I go in and type, okay, the last 2 hours I kind of type out everything I did in those hours. And then I just kind of transfer that information into an invoice at the end of the month.
Right. Yeah, that's the truth. It might be awesome to place every order for 10 designers on Kravit Inc.'s platform at the same time, but you can't quantify that. So you have to go in, do everything for one designer, whatever you intend to do that day, record it, and then go in and start all over again with a different designer, right?
Exactly. Otherwise, it scares me. I don't want to, enter one designer's payment information for...
Oh, well, that's another great point. That's another great point, that if you have multiple accounts open for multiple designers, then you could more easily make a mistake by including the wrong information in a purchase order to the vendor.
Exactly.
Okay. Now, you also mentioned that the handling of COM furniture and custom design pieces. This is to your point, ordering any piece of furniture, stock furniture, whatever it is, has multiple steps, from the checking that the client has been invoiced properly to that the purchase order for the furniture company or whatever has been done properly, to the confirmation has been received. And that's all if it's a straightforward, stock item sofa from the trade source's website. But as soon as we start to get into COMs and CFAs and all of that stuff, you handle that process as well. It's not like, the designer has to trail all that nonsense and then ultimately you just place a clean order. You actually do that whole process as well.
Yes, definitely. And so I kind of order it like I would anything else. And then there's usually just a lot more communication needed on those orders. If I place a purchase order for a fabric that's going to be shipped to go on a sofa, if when I place the order, the client hasn't received the cutting yet, then, I'll note that on the purchase order that we're still pending receipt of that. And then I'll kind of have it on my status sheet to check in with the designer to see if they've gotten that yet. And then, and some designers like to just kind of email their approvals for cuttings on their own and just copy me, and then I'll record that.
Okay.
And others just send me and say, I've received it and it's approved.
Okay.
And so that's definitely something. And then I always like to, I think that it's one of those things too, where you could absolutely place an order for a fabric, approve the cutting, and just trust it's going to get to the manufacturer and that they're going to match it up appropriately. And you just cross your fingers that everything shows up in 8 weeks. But I think that vendors really do appreciate when you can say, this fabric is en route to you. It's arriving via FedEx tomorrow. Can you let me know for sure when you receive it? And I think that's just another thing that has been helpful for designers too, just to know that it's not just throwing it out and assuming it's all going to arrive.
I can't even imagine that. I mean, are there design firms
No.
that do that? There's no way. That's insanity.
Well, I think if you don't have time, I mean, those are the little steps that could go
They're the
without
first things
being
to
done.
go by the wayside, is what you're saying when you're busy.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Right.
Well, because the designers are so, I mean, I think people underestimate how many hats they're wearing.
Oh, yeah.
And just their client communication alone is mind blowing to me.
It's brutal.
And so not to mention the site visits. I mean, there's so many things that could consume their time that I can understand how they would not ever think to follow up on those items because
100%.
there's not enough time.
Right.
And it's just as difficult with the bigger manufacturers, that are used to receiving CONs all the time, and they have very specific procedures you have to follow. You have to fill out a CON form, and your side mark has to list this 20,000 digit number.
Right. And if you don't have all those things, it sits there in the lost and found on the planet. What is that? What is it? The Christmas nobody ever found or something.
Right.
What is that? Misfit Island. It's on Misfit Island. Nobody knows.
And that's just paperwork that is so tedious, so it's also just nice that they don't have to stop what they're doing and fill out a PDF form every 10 minutes,
No, and that's the truth. I'm with you on absolutely having great awe for the myriad of details that a designer must deliver and pay attention to and execute in a single day, let alone, because that's exactly why the Window Works trade division was developed, because I know all the details just in the window treatment. So how can you even do that adequately if you've got that same level of detail? I just saw on Instagram the other day, Yoshevid posted Green Door Interiors here in the New York area, and she posted on her stories that she had on the wall of the tile install in the bathroom going up. She had a drawing on the wall of the layout of the tile. And I was like, way to go, lady. Love that. Love that. It's like that level of detail that when you give that to your vendor is just so helpful. But locking down your own schedule in order to create that level of detail for all of the vendors that you touch in your project is insane, right?
It really is.
Yeah.
And there's just, when they have the pressure from their client, trusting them to do everything that they said they deliver. And so it's a lot of pressure.
And that's why I love what you do, because what you do, this whole procurement process, is absolutely critical to the profitability of an interior design firm, right? So their talent as a designer is critical to being able to attract more and more clients. But if they don't have a finite process and service for this part of the business, it not only makes it harder to get the client to re-enter your funnel and become a client again because the project wasn't maybe smoothly run, but it also makes it harder to maintain the profitability because mistakes are made when you are pressured. And here you have somebody like yourself that this is what you're going to sit down and do every single day. You understand every step that goes in and out. And first, it's like that book when you give a mouse a cookie. If you give a mouse a cookie, he's going to want a glass of milk. If he gets a glass of milk, he's going to want a napkin, right? It's like if you give Bethany a purchase order, she's going to do this. And if she gets that, she's going to do this.
That's pretty great.
Right? Because the rest of us are like, okay, I have a purchase order. Step one, what's next?
Yeah, exactly.
Or how about this? Send it in the mail and have it with the wrong quantity. No problem.
No problem. And then make you rush when it gets there.
Yeah. So it's a lot, and I have great appreciation for that. You love to do it. And the other thing is, what's interesting is that I thought in your services that you offer was the installation support. And there was a couple things on this line item that jumped out at me. I love the coordinating building arrangements. Oh my goodness. Honestly, what Adriana goes through in order to schedule an installation in New York City.
I can only imagine in New York. Freight elevators. Insurance requirements.
Exactly. You know it all. You know it all, right? So it's like 19 emails to get the insurance requirements. Then it's like, do we have to reserve the freight elevator? What time can we get there? And, depending on what the building is now. Fortunately, most buildings are not so crazy that you have to reserve the freight elevator, but there are buildings that you do. And
Definitely.
we had one of the Trump buildings years ago on the west side over, I think, at Columbus Circle area. It was when it was first being built. I'm totally dating myself there, folks, because that was like 25 years ago. Okay. But it was the security at that building was and is so detailed that when my partner Bill showed up, he did not have a business card on him. He had his license. He had his WindowWorks uniform on him, his WindowWorks shirt. He had the WindowWorks van right there, but they were like, yeah, you don't have a business card, so you can't come in. And
Which
we're just
like the least official of all of this.
Right. And we're just like, wait, so he hijacked a WindowWorks van and ripped the shirt off the guy to get in. Like, you gotta be kidding me.
It's true.
It was crazy. But what it was is, and we, because I'm listening to the conversation, and it wasn't Adriana then, she was barely on the planet then, but it was whoever it was. And I'm like, give me that phone. That's ridiculous. Right. So I pick up the phone and I'm going around and around with this person. Finally, I'm like, okay, you're going to need to, because we had done we had sent his credentials ahead of time. We had done all the things that we have to do. This was just physically checking him and getting him in the building now. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to need to speak to a supervisor. You're just going to have to get me a supervisor. Supervisor gets on. And ultimately the supervisor, because I did the same thing. I'm like, the business card? Seriously? This is the credential? Yeah. And he said to me, he goes, it's the combination of all the credentials together. He said, any one person could have the license. Any one person could have this. And I was just like, okay.
Well, any one person could be out of business cards or,
right. It was crazy. But the thing is, to your point, is that how about little things? I'm sure you also have to find out, does the freight elevator ceiling open? Right.
Yeah,
so that
that's
you can
always
get,
a thing. Right.
Like for us, we have to get the drapery rods in the freight elevators and the cornices and the Roman shades that are all mounted on boards. And so to have someone of your expertise and experience in this working on this end of a project is so valuable, because you have done it thousands of times and you already know. I'm sure there's still every day that you learn something, every week that you make some sort of mistake, sure. Right? But you're always revising. My imagination is that you're always revising and tightening up so that doesn't happen. And you're seeing 15 times the combinations that any one design firm is going to run across on their own.
Exactly. That's a good point. Yeah. That doesn't mean I'm not constantly learning with every situation, which would have been better or what can be better. And, and there's plenty of times where we've had to hoist things on top of freight elevators or like send and the warehouses, depending on which warehouses designers use, are usually pretty incredible with the way that they give everything received an item, they give it like a warehouse receiving number. And so I keep track of all those as well. Cause there's also been installations where, that one little component that you need to assemble something had its own warehouse number, and that wasn't included on the list that the warehouse was supposed to bring. And so it's just nice to have someone kind of on your side that day that's on site worrying about all those nitty gritty annoying things, and they can worry about making sure it looks Yeah.
So that's what I was going to say. That was the other point under installation support, that if the designer wants you to be on site for installation day, you will do that also. Obviously, I'm sure you can work remotely with designers all across the country.
Yeah.
But if it is a local designer to you, or I'm sure if a designer has a big enough project and they want to build in pricing, having you come out there and do it. I mean, did I just add a ladder of services to your business, Bethany, or would you do that?
I would absolutely do that. And then there are others that I work for that are across the country that I just kind of know that it's installation day for them. So I make sure to free my schedule. So I'm kind of on call if they need me
like
to.
Virtually there.
Yeah. So then I can, call if something is damaged and it wasn't recorded as damaged before. There's always, who knows, there's so many things that come up. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, it's so funny because I can't even imagine coordinating a big reveal install. We at WindowWorks have delved into furniture so rarely. I mean, I think in 37 years, we've ordered 5 pieces of furniture because it's just not my thing. And I only do it. I've done it the 5 times I've done it because we've done it is because I know I can order furniture through Cravat Inc. And I love them and I trust them and I know them and the process is easy. And then the other criteria is it has to be a client that I've worked with a billion times. And they're like, could you just get me a custom sofa, Luann? I'm like, all right, fine, let's do it. Right. And so we've done it. But what's funny is, the last time we did it was probably like 4 or 5 years ago. Hadn't done it in probably 10 years at that point. And do you know that it was a single sofa and single chair that we had sent to a receiver, and on the installation day, the wrong sofa was delivered?
Oh my God.
I was like, sweet Jesus. I did this my third time in 37 years. Right. Yeah. Like, and what was interesting is you should have seen me and Kim. And here's what's funnier. I didn't even recognize it was the wrong one. Like, I'm just like, okay, Miss Detail.
Like, this is not the thing I want to do.
And I actually looked and I thought, I don't really love that fabric in here. How did we pick that?
You're like, I guess I was just in a different mindset when I did that.
Exactly. And she's like, and she's like, because she wasn't there. And she's like, send me the pictures. And she's like, that's not the sofa. I'm like, it's not. No wonder I don't like it. But the thing was it was so crazy was that when she started calling, I mean, for a half hour, they insisted that they delivered the right piece. It was hysterical. And I was just like, my brain just went, there's no way I could do this with 400 pieces in one day.
Oh,
there's no way.
Gosh,
no way.
No way. I know. It's
I'm not built for that.
Well, but I do think designers can, I've worked with a couple of designers that, like I said, they primarily focus on, maybe the gut renovation of a home, and then they kind of stop at the furniture because some of them, they're more architectural based. They're like, I don't want to deal with that. And someone I'm working with now has decided to deal with it because it's a great opportunity. And I think it's been good for the two of us to work together through this process because, I mean, it's given me excitement to make this a digestible thing for her because it is a good opportunity for designers to make money too, because it's another stream of income for their business if they can take that part of a project on.
Exactly. I love it. Yeah. I love it. So I think we have pretty much expressed how you are 110% in with each designer that you work with, that you are there to check every last blasted detail, that if something comes in right, comes in wrong, needs to be repaired, replaced, you are going to take that all the way to completion. So even on that install, whether you're there virtually or you're there in person, if there is a deficiency list at the end of it, the designer is that last component. Their team doesn't have to deal with that either. You're going to go back and say, hey, wrong sofa, wrong fabric, damaged leg. You're really going to wrap all the thing into a bow, correct?
Right, correct.
Yeah.
Right.
I love it. I love it. I don't know. Is there anything in your mind that you feel is a feature or a benefit that I neglected to think of or bring out that we should let people know, Bethany?
Well, I mean, I think it's good for, even on a personal note, for people to realize, as much as I love the logistical details of everything, when I have free time, I'm also an abstract painter. And so I have a massive appreciation and respect for any type of creative baby of any kind, and I love just the industry as a whole. I just love being a part of it, but I'd prefer to be a part of it in the way that I am. So I think it's just good. It's just good for people to know that this isn't something that I'm just kind of clocking in and out of, looking at it as, I'm looking at the whole picture of it, and that is something that I have a huge admiration for, and that I'm really excited to be a part of it. So I think that sometimes gives designers a peace of mind too, because I think some people look at what they do as, it's just like, really, we're spending this much time and money on a home. It's like, well, no, this is a big deal, what they're providing for people, and there's a lot of value in what they're giving people. And I think it's nice to work with someone that truly respects what you do, Yeah,
absolutely. Everybody wants to be seen and heard. And so what you're saying is, I see designers and I hear them and I get their value.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I love
I
that.
think that's a good thing I think that's a good thing for them to know.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. I think it's just awesome. And I have to say, I just, if I were a designer, I would farm this out in a heartbeat.
Oh, thanks, man. You made me sound really good. So thank you for that.
No, ma'am. I would be like, yep, here, take it.
Go ahead.
That's it,
For sure.
So it's nice. I love the accountability that you have built into the process so that it's all transparent between yourself and the designer. And that says a lot to me. That little detail there says a lot to me, that you have it as open shared documents, because that means that you come every day. Yeah, no, it's true, because that, look, we've all been there, designers, me, everybody, we've all been there and thought, it's 8:00. I got to go home, but I should do this one more thing. And sometimes you do it and sometimes you don't. But there's you can't kick it to the corner for 4 days or 6 days or 10 days, right? And so knowing that you have that open shared documentation procedure, to me, if I were hiring you, that would be my safety net right there. That would be my.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. That's good to know. It's good for me to hear that perspective, to know kind of what pieces are comforting.
Right. And the thing is, for me, what I also know is that I would utilize that for X amount of weeks or months. And then I would be, okay, I've never found her to let me down. I've never went into a document and the things that I gave her on Monday to do weren't done by Friday, or whatever the agreements are. And then I would be able to be, okay, let's loosen the bootstraps here and just trust and wait for my weekly or monthly meeting. But I love that I could check it.
But that does take time to feel that trust.
Yes,
I understand that.
Yep, definitely. So, well, awesome. So, Interior Procurement Group, right? So, and that is your website for this, but then we should also share your website for your abstract art, right?
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah.
And that website it's your name, BethanyMabeeArt.com. Is that what it is?
Yep, that's what it is.
Okay. So, and Mabee is Mabee, BethanyMabeeArt.com. Yeah. So awesome.
I mean, obviously, I don't know where I'd be without interior designers. They're the ones that buy my art and give me work. So. Thank you, interior designers.
That's awesome. Well, Bethany, thank you for what you do, and thank you for sharing it on our show today.
Well, thank you so much for giving me a chance to get it out there.
This is pretty fantastic, isn't it? I mean, had you ever imagined you could outsource this side of your business to this level? I mean, to really this level. And you heard it. Bethany remotely manages all aspects of the procurement process, including purchasing, billing, and warehousing. You design, and then Bethany steps in. She can generate client proposals, process purchase orders, communicate custom specifications, sample approvals, everything that she described during the program. All right. And of course, her tracking everything and making sure that she maintains the communications and the records. It's just amazing. And I love that this is really available to us in so many aspects of our businesses now, all right? We don't always have to hire a person and expect them to have superpowers in multiple disciplines, and then, of course, suffer the consequences when they're just not possible to meet these expectations, right? How often is after your bookkeeper, first hire is your bookkeeper, okay? But how often when you hire that first junior designer or design assistant, we also, pile on them all of these sorts of tasks as well. But meanwhile, the superpower that makes someone an awesome design assistant, junior designer, whatever you title them as, is so far from the skill set that would give them the even chance to do this part of the job at the level of excellence. Let's be serious, right? We need our processes as far as procurement and all of the contracts and all of the invoices and all of the confirmations to not be, okay, good enough, but amazing. They need to be clean, right? You need to know that your records are in shape. And so I just love this. And I know that I complain a lot about how technology has changed the way we do business now, but there are some truly terrific advantages. And this wave of virtual assistants, remote workers, consultants that work in a one-off capacity is a real game changer. And I have to say, I'm totally on board with this thing. I love that you get to hire someone who is an expert at what they do. They work the number of hours required to do that job, no more, no less. And, we're meeting more and more people. I'm going to speak for me. I'm meeting more and more people that their entire firm, maybe save one person, is a completely outsourced team with each person in their superpower. So nobody is asked to do jobs that they're just not that good at, all right? And the thing about this is, that when you can work this way, it's clean, it's efficient, and when you use it properly, it will increase your profits, okay? In fact, next week on Power Talk Friday, there's an interview going up with Jamie of #Legal. Jamie is a lawyer who actually works in the same capacity on both levels. First of all, you're going to hear her describe her law firm is all remote employees. Okay, that's number one. But secondly, Jamie also works in this one-off manner the way Bethany does. So no longer are people always expecting you to hire them for on retainer for 50 hours or have a full-time position at their company. People are happy and willing to come in, do their superpower, and leave. Another one that comes to mind is Amanda Berlin. She's a PR expert, and she was on the show on episode number 420. And she's the same way. You can hire her, full on, or you can hire her for a one-off thing that you might have an opportunity to do that you just want to build some buzz around. And that's an unusual thing to be able to hire a PR firm for a one-off. She also has group coaching where you can come in and learn how to do some of the things yourself. So, and in addition to this, we have Sarah Dernier, who is in episode number 418. You can outsource your Sketchit and your Revit and your renderings to her, all the things, all that end of the business to Sarah. This all goes to saving you time so that you are spending time doing the things that you are good at. Like my friend Marianne Cherico says, what would the CEO be doing right now? So this enables you to sit at the top of your firm, work in your strength, and spend your time creating more business, okay, and designing, and then have truly expert people do the job around you, okay, rather than have somebody in-house do a so-so job, all right? The key is identifying the areas in your business that could be done better by someone else. And the secondary key of that is accepting that it's not a deficit on your part that you can't do it. It's more looking at it's your job as the leader to look around and recognize first in yourself what you're good at and what you're not so good at, but then to identify the processes and the jobs, tasks, and the different avenues that your money would be well spent to get back your time to do something else. Okay? Because when you do this and you utilize all of these tools that are at your disposal, then you can truly create an efficient, profitable business. And a business that is running in this way, where everybody is working in their strength, is a business that is way more likely to deliver an outstanding client experience, right? And when you do that, that's where the magic happens. That's when you start to get repeat clients, you get referrals, and that's when you, quite frankly, start to make some money. And that's what it's all about, isn't it? Okay. All right. So it is, if you're listening to this in real time, this is Las Vegas market time, 2019, summer 2019. Tomorrow, if you are in Las Vegas, July 27th, 2019, I am running my Power Talk Friday one-day coaching event. If you're listening to this on Friday and you're like, wait, what? I have to get in? I would say email me, because I'm recording this enough ahead of time that I'm not 100% sure if I'm sold out or not. But if I'm not sold out, I would love to have you. So don't hesitate. Other than that, if you're going to be at Las Vegas Market, please come to see me on Monday at 3 o'clock at Uttermost. This event is co-sponsored by My Doma Studio and IDS, Interior Design Society. And I would love for you to come out and see all of us there. What I'm going to be doing is giving a little bit of a butt kicking, Okay, kind of a one-off conversation here, asking you to take some stock of yourself. We'll do a lot of Q&A, all right? I love to get to having conversations with you guys and seeing what's going on in your business. And of course, we'll be doing a book signing as well. So hope you'll join us 3 o'clock Monday at Uttermost. And a reminder that my friend Nancy Ganskaufer is going to be 11 o'clock in the seminar space with IDS, and she's going to be doing a conversation about body language and reading body language and how this helps you be more effective at closing your prospects and turning them into clients, and also handling the difficult conversations and these, cues that people give off, that if you're aware of them and understand how to process them, that maybe you can help situations and make them a little better for yourself, okay? So please make sure to learn about the IDS while you're out there, and also My Doma Studio. Thank you so much to each of this organization and this company that do so much for all of us here at the podcast, me mostly. Okay, guys, wondering what you're going to do. How are you going to make the most of this day, of this very single moment where you have just spent an hour of your time getting all kinds of great information and great ideas from my guest, and wondering how you're going to put it to work, right? What are you going to do? It all starts with that decision, okay? It actually doesn't start with the decision, does it? It starts with the idea. And then we have to take that idea into the decision, because that's when things happen, when you actually commit to yourself to take one idea and turn it into an action, okay? So I want you every day, in every way, to decide to be excellent. Thank you so much for joining me again today. This podcast is a production of WindowWorks, your resource for custom window treatments and awnings. To learn how we can help you on your next interior design project, go to www.windowworks-nj.com. And if you're interested in working with me on your business, either through masterminds or one-on-one coaching, or you want to know how to get my book, The Making of a Well-Designed Business, or you just want to know what's going on in the podcast land and where I'm going to be, all of that is found at luannigara.com. Thank you so much. Have an excellent day.